What up, people of the world? Welcome back to Knell of St. Godhrkar. Check to make sure this is working. Yep, brilliant. Now, the last thing that happened is Raven was talking to Mr. Witchar, whatever his name is, in his study in the front room, and Witchar was asking him to continue being his daughter's doctor, his daughter's physician after the throat surgery went well, when Chevlet's old proprietor burst into the room and started making threats and demands at Mr. Witchar, Mr. Whiteson even, and then randomly started choking and then started vomiting up blood and died on the carpet, which we're really not sure why or how that happened yet. We're still trying to figure that out. It's only just happened. But now we've got an Arif Semhel chapter. Sitting in the conference room, Arif was waiting for her turn to speak. She needed to tell every scholar in the room that the situation was far more complicated than they had expected. The address and the words recorded in that encrypted telegram arrived in the evening, made she realized who or what is behind all of this. Okay. So they've got an encrypted telegram sent to them or something like that, and it's made her realize who's behind all the murders. I don't know. Let's find out. I'm excited.
Sure.
Hector. Who's Hector? Professor A. Fine, let's just get to the point. It's exactly the reason why we are funding Glossan Radio, isn't it? But by doing that, we could also build our broadcasting network to be the pioneer of dissemination of information. It means we could be in charge of the spread of sample exposure. Isn't this the reason why we are all headed there right now? Some professors even knuckling down on the wood table to express their objection. The room is in an uproar. Rabble, 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 rabble. The man who just chimed in has to silence himself. Still, he shrugs to show that he didn't take this personally. Meanwhile, Arif is concentrating on the files at hand in her seat beside her boss, Saelt Malnathan. Oh, so Saelt is there, the father of Heikano. Sorry, not Mal. Heikano. The father of the priest who we just saw having the argument in his study. They are sitting in the conference room. A carved chandelier lights up the whole space. An exquisite antique table with every attendant's name tag in place. Sorry. An exquisite antique table with every attendant's name tags on is placed in the center of the room. Phosphoners is their name. Monitoring metamorphers. I wonder if the Gwler brother, was a metamorpher, since he changed into that weird beast during the fight, and then died anyway. More than 30 scholars of different specialists, successors of the ancient Verathesis order, gathered in this very room. They are here to be the judges of those cases that cannot be disclosed. Just like the ones at her hand, the files of latent metamorpher suspects. Here we go, metamorpher. Oh no, maybe not. Use music to induce anomalies. Weird.
Fierstar bows.
We must consider the potential for abuse of those metamorphers and genealogies. Use it to spread their songs and curse. Okay. The Phosphoners will not fear the power of technology, Professor Caplet. We will drift more... I think those are supposed to be there. Yeah, Professor Caplet. We will drift... Is she speaking or what? I don't know what's going on. Ah! What? There's the punctuation marks end there, so that's where she finishes speaking. Then Professor Caplet comes along, and then a full stop. And then it says, we will drift more far away from the truth if we are too concerned about the negative effects. I think she's meant to be speaking. I think those punctuation marks are supposed to be there. Those speech, whatever they're called. Speech commas. Anyway, this game cracks me up. It's so funny. But it would be too risky if the public knows about Hector. Oh yeah, we haven't checked who Hector is. Hector Caplet. Okay, weird. But it would be too risky if the public knows about their existence or the perception is too high over the threshold.
More fierce, dear.
Who's Dugginson? It's not that bad, Hector. Some of them are trying to fit in. This is a good sign.
Hello? Huh.
And who's Vanchester? Who are all these people? By fit in, you mean hide. If they do, we'll be needing more sentinels. But what if they're up to something?
Most of Manchester.
Don't overestimate them, dear Vanchester. I believe they have learned their lessons. Fine, but we still got Metamorpho at our hands. They know nothing about what they are capable of, like a damned boom. Damned boom. What if Glasson hires an idiot and gives away their songs? Vanchester has a point. We need to be cautious. It's hard to recruit these days. We would be an easy target for Pequenia. The guerrillas have made those soldiers paid their price. How many scavenger are there left? If it wasn't for this damned war, we wouldn't have to be so timorous, for Godhrkar's sake.
Say.
Speaking of which, what about those two metamorphers? And the sentinels we sent out?
Quick sis.
Ahem, let me brief you with the updates. Aerith stands before erased the anxiety off her face. Okay.
Sigh.
About Sentinel, Tuna, Keshdozai's and the samples. Her calm voice should be heard from the end of the room. She skims around to see the professors in quarrel have decided to put aside their dispute.
My austere.
Okay, I will take it as if everybody has read the news. Metamorpho Gowl and Glur Warnock are very dangerous. They must be terminated. Yes, so Metamorpho Gowl and Glur. Gowl might not be a Metamorpho, but Glur certainly is. We sent Ashfrazal. Okay, that was Porelai, the assassin. Out on this case a few days ago. I have received his telegram from Illy City this afternoon. It says that one of its targets, Glur Warnock, has been terminated.
My austere.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. So the Verithesis Order is controlling Porelai, the assassin. So maybe they did have something to do with Zeriel's parents' death back in 1529. Interesting. The scene was staged and the traces was covered. Piciena's investigation team will take over as planned. This would be our best chance of talking to Piciena. As for the sentinel Tuna Keshdozai, he will be released from prison soon, if without further delay. She pauses for a while before continuing her speech.
Cool, really.
So, I will visit Illy City to pick him up. You can't be serious! The room goes into an uproar again. Rabble, 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 rabble. Everyone just can't wait to spit out their objections. She is getting used to this. So the girl just stands there waiting for their questions. I can understand that you're eager, Miss Semhel, but you are the head of your team now. You must think twice before making a decision. Exactly. We can't afford to lose another captain.
Conflict.
You mustn't say that, Van. Miss Semhal has her own way of connecting to her colleague. Either way, it's too dangerous out on the front. I think this is absolutely unnecessary. What about you, Chief Mulnathan?
Fee.
I agree. Fee. If his honor said so, I agree. What about you guys? Oh, ferret, you butt sniffer. Butt kisser. This represent from Island, from Ireland, Asturian. This representative, I think it's supposed to say representative, yeah. This representative from Ireland, Asturian domain supports her with his ease chuckle.
Z.
I agree. Keshtozai was exposed. We can't afford another exposure of metamorphos. I think Miss Semhel could see to this from happening again. I still got some questions. A refreshing and sweet voice comes from across the table, with her father Rodrigo beside her with approving eyes. This red-haired young lady of Blacken's family, Revieka, voiced her objection. If Mr. Ishfaza has been at the right place at the right time, the Walnut brothers would be dead already. There is no need for you to pick him up yourself. Yeah, how's it going in Illy? What about him? He's not damaged, is he? It's not even 20 years. You're worried too much.
Moyer's there.
But we have to admit that Miss Semhel has made the safest choice, hasn't she? We can't put Porali... Yeah, it's Porali. We can't put Porali on this job or any other sentinels. Just think about how many people we have left. Vanchester, those days are gone.
Starrelai.
I agree. We need to solve this problem as soon as we can. This decision is the best we could make. Seeing some conservatives have chose to side with her, she quietly awaits for this debate to end.
Z.
Besides, an exposed sentinel will arouse more suspicions. The church doesn't know much about Keshtozai, let alone Bishop Dolores Guile. Oh, so Bishop Guile's been pulled into it. The Pope will find out about Metamorpho if we don't get this over with quick.
Rigon.
Heck, if Finley was still around, we still... Oh, Finley, yeah. That's the son, the other son of Sayet, whatever his name is. The brother to Heikano, who died. Heck, if Finley was still around, we wouldn't be here bickering about who should be sent out on the mission.
So fear Mr. All.
But a dead man can't do the job. Sorry guys, I never missed out on the gossips. Thanks for that, ferret. Just shut up, alright? You're completely irrelevant. No one likes you. That is not the point. She raises her right hand to show that she is not finished yet. Some scholars who were about to knuckle the table were forced to suppress their anger. Judging from their expressions, they admit she made a point for now.
My austere.
Sending me to Illy will be our best solution. Things is going our way. We cannot afford to turn or twist. And we still got this. She unfolds a telegram to show the word artificial throat to everyone in this room. The telegram ends with these two words, underneath which is what stirs up her thoughts. A researcher named Ma Rego first came up with this idea 10 years ago. He tried to invent a replacement for human throat which could bring back the voice to the patients. This was only a theory until recently. She found this in one of the medical books when she skimmed through before coming to the conference. With this device, those patients could talk or even sing again. Could this be the harbinger of another scheme? What the hell? That's such an ambiguous, weird chapter. And we just move on to day 8. That's a really confusing and weird chapter. I've got no idea what's going on there, guys. They're obviously arguing about what to do about the situation that's going on with the Guiller brothers and Keshtozai and everything like that. But that telegram she got at the end is very confusing. Anyway. Urtrin, just hang in there. Don't fall asleep. But there was only the murmur there, like noises from an old bellows. His beautiful Reseda Eris is His beautiful Reseda iris is dilating, white rose-like cheeks pale from massive blood loss. Footsteps were dragging behind him with sticky sound of blood, which was all over the ground. The elder gendarme gently put down the cold, stiff body and closed the woman's wide-open dark eyes. This was the last body.
Godhrkar.
What's the situation? Sergius Samolite shook his head to suggest that the sole survivor was being watched by Urchin himself. He's the only one who survived. Tivale called the doctor before he vomited. How is it? Can we save this boy? Don't know yet.
Zidomia.
If he survives, we will have him to point out the murderer. I will find out who did this even without a witness. The gendarme holds the boy's head to keep his severed windpipe and blood vessels intact, so the blood and air could continue to transfuse life to his brain regardless of that long fatal wound. Oh, this must be the first guy who was murdered. This must be when they got to the murder cutscene of the first one. The first guy in the introductory cutscene. The young man's wound had been properly attended before they arrived. It was tightly wrapped in the tourniquet, which was quickly soaked by viscous blood, like running water from a tap. The dark crimson on the fibre is extremely terrifying. It gradually covered his neck and chest. This boy was clearly unconscious, but his withered, flower-like lips tremble like a little, like a silent scream. He could still clearly remember the indescribable heat of blood, which reminded him of the streaming entrails, the splashes on the walls, and the semi-dried crimson pooling on the floor. The members of the Luhrmann orchestra laid on the ground, their eyes still wide open, while their pupils only dilated and their beautiful irises had opaqued. Many nights they just stared at him in silence, as if searching for an answer. This nightmare could still wake him up in terror and cold years later. It was a month before Urchin heard of the poor survivor again. The situation in Promland had been increasingly tense, with daily telegrams from Pikiana like snowflakes, one after another, warning them to stop investigating the case. You are just petrolmen, not detectives in a fucking movie. Commander Fiat even spent 3 more fill cents for his bad language. Among those who was investigating the Luhrmann orchestra case in secret, Tivale was the most eager one. He was vivacious and simple, and was always the object of teasing and caring for his colleagues. But that day things were different. He was carrying a thick dossier with a sullen expression on his face.
Oh, sir.
Captain Easternizer, we just got the message. You remember Albert, the survivor of Luhrmann's case? Well, he didn't make it. I see, what a pity. The man fastens a cloak to his shoulders and answered. He knew this would happen then when Albert was transferred to another hospital for better treatment. Luhrmann Orchestra is Popoloid's greatest treasure. This is not just an ordinary crime when such gruesome massacre happened during a tour overseas. The government of Promland, teetered on the brink of civil war, spends a month searching for scapegoat from Popoloij. Case closed. As for the policemen who are still persistently hunting down the murderer, the army has their own way of stopping them.
Darfik.
The investigation has been disbanded. Tivale, you don't have to report to me anymore. But you haven't given up on the search, have you?
Meh.
I won't throw in the towel either. Thank you. Don't forget we got urgent matters at our hands. Tivale, Urchin, something is happening up north. A lot of Hokurokan from south are preparing themselves for reasons unknown. Stay sharp, guys. Same to you. Artushal is not really a safe place. You should look after Maine. Yeah, Captain Samurai, just go ahead. You can count on us.
Still.
She will stay in Illy. Will you keep an eye out on her while I am away?
Allein.
Sure, we should go now, Tivale. Yes, sir. I will be tending the files. Good luck. Sergius takes the dossier from his arms before heading to the office. The captain winks at him on his way out. Be careful, Sergius. Better not left behind some of those files.
Feel.
I'm not dumb, Urchin. If any of us were to be sent to the frontier for negligence, it must be Tivale. Hey, that's hurtful, man. They enjoy the jokes that cracked down and the drinks they shared after work at the bar. A few pleasures left during such a difficult time. Soon the war spreads its wings, hovering above everybody's heads. So this is before the war. The timeline's jumping around quite a lot. It's making me confused. This must be police officer Urchinizer thinking back about the war. And before he was standing at the scene of the crime of the first murder. So I don't know what's going on with the timeline. Their efforts turned out to be in vain when the Civil War broke out. The files were sealed, every police officer picked up their guns. These Skian were recruited as soldiers and sent to the front. Sergius took a bullet before the war ended. He spent 15 days in hospital before waking up and earning himself a medal. As for Urchin, maybe it's for his pre-war intransigence. He got transferred to Illy City Police Department. The youngest among them, Trivel Roy, is lying peacefully under the ground of the cemetery behind Ermengarde Chapel, along with his fellow comrades never to return. May you rest in peace, comrade. Okay, now we're back to the present day, obviously. After placing the bouquet gently in front of Tivale's tombstone, he straightens his back and salutes his comrades. He turns around and is greeted by the embrace of his wife and children. His daughter, Cynthia, is steadying the widow. Natasha pulls out a handkerchief and wipes her tears in silence. Thank you all for coming today. Tivale would be very happy.
Gush.
I should have taken care of him. No, please don't say that. This is not your fault, Urchin. It's nobody's fault. There's nothing anyone can do about it. The oppressive atmosphere is haunting the man's tomb. He pets Olin on the head and beckons to his mother.
Billion.
Keep an eye out on Natasha and the kids, Billy. I'm going to see another old friend. I'll be right back. Bililea is still consoling the widow. She nods as a response and calls the boy to her side. Watching her father disappear in the morning fog, Cynthia wrapped an arm around her brother's shoulder. His eye sweeps over the names while passing through the headstones of martyrs who died between 1539 and 1544. A familiar one would jump into his sight almost every few seconds. The man lights up a cigarette and breathing in the freezing air of the mist before heading to the tomb of Albert. This poor boy wasn't able to return to his home after he died here in Illy. He is buried here alone with nothing but crows and tombstones as company. While the wild veil-like fog disperses before him, okay? There are no people in the area except for a few mourners not far from Albert. One of them is squatting down while praying before one of the graves. White lilies on the stones are still fresh, with dew on each petal. The young man in a heavy coat is standing beside the others, looks very familiar to the detective. Oh, it's Raven. This is the medical student who came to do the autopsy the other day. So has Raven been freed by Whiteson then? Winshaw? That Winshaw from med school? The sudden appearance of Urchin startles the shy student. He turns his head to look at his caller and opens his mouth unawares, as if to stutter a hello but fails. This is a real surprise, he thought with a bitter smile. They always meet where the body sleeps. What a coincidence. What are you doing here? His smile and kindness seems to be thrown at a statue, and Raven, still stiff, forces a smile at him.
Godhrkar?
Are you alright?
Line.
I'm fine, thank you. This greeting seems to have drained his strength. Raven's face is pale, covered with sweat. He doesn't look fine to him. But the detective doesn't press on, just nods in incredulity. Maybe the boy just feels sick. He is not, by all means, a strong type, small figure with slim torso. Besides, they have worked together before. If there's anything wrong, he will tell him. He's a cop. The gentleman gets up from the tombstone. He shifts his weight onto his cane and nods at the boy. There's an air of uneasiness that floats around the trio like a grey mist, freezing them to the ground. The detective just taking one drag after another of his cigarette while his eyes shifting from the medical student and the older man.
Just your claw?
So who are you paying a visit to, may I ask? For someone I didn't save. Albert and Tivale. He fixes his gaze on the younger man, a callow boy with a face some might find attractive. This reminds him of Albert. He died even younger than this medical student before him.
Godhrkar?
And you?
Moir's dear.
I'm just here with a friend. As Raven speaks, the older man's sullen expression slacks. This makes his bulging brows and slim nose look extremely gaunt, revealing fatigue and pain. Is that Whiteson without his monocle? I'm not sure. Please excuse my manners, as a father who has lost his daughter.
Gush.
I don't know who it is then. This is some other time. This must be before Whiteson kidnapped Raven, I think. But after the autopsy. What the hell is going on? I'm so confused. No, I should apologize. Siorot, the name engraved on the stone, He shifts his gaze to the gentleman, watching him take off his monocle and wipes it gently with a piece of silk as if he's lost in the past. She was a wonderful, well-behaved girl, lovely as an angel, the sweetest dream. His hands drop with a faint smile to play on his lips. His lashes remain even. Maybe she was too good for this world, so very true to have taken her away so early. He lets out a sigh full of vicissitudes of life. Then he turns around before letting out a suppressed sob of pain. The detective shifts his gaze to Albert's gravestone. Gods always want the most innocent souls by their side. They are so vibrant, full of potential, gone too soon. So, you were also mourning your child? No, it was a victim of my case. He was just in his teens when his throat was cut open. Maybe death was kinder to him. You know, as a musical genius who grew up as a star and lost his voice, alas. He takes a drag from his cigarette, slowly puffing out a sigh. The resonance of the detective's words make the older man lift his head, looking pensive. He does look less withered than before.
Just your claw.
Did you catch the guy?
Der Fick.
No, this is the most appalling cold case I've ever come across. We could have caught him, but he is very skilled, done them with awful precision. Except for Albert, his throat was cut with a bandage when we found him, first aid style. His throat was covered with a bandage when we found him, first aid style. Someone was trying to save him? Who knows, maybe it was his last mercy, but it didn't help.
Godhrkar.
Take a cigarette. For this rare encounter, I come here every year, take a cigarette for this rare encounter. I come here every year, but this is the first time someone is with me.
A line.
No, thank you. The gentleman straightens up his body and brushes the dirt off his coat. He pulls up his collar, covering most of his face. The man grabs the boy by the arm to drag him away, making him stumble past the detective.
That's Whiteson.
Mr. Whiteson! It is Mr. Whiteson. Looking at the two who leave in a hurry, he turns the butt between his fingers. Something is wrong. The cop's intuition is calling the cops. But he can't tell if this time it was still his nerves. Only when the two men disappeared into the fog does he decide to forget about it for the time being. When he sees the fresh lilies on the grave, he remembers that he has not brought any flowers.
Gush.
Sorry, Albert. So did Whiteson's daughter die then after the surgery? He stands up and pats down the dust on his pants when he heard Billy's calling. Maybe Rorty, the daughter of Whiteson, died after the surgery. And that's what's going on here. As the sun gradually climbs into the middle of the sky, the fog gradually clears away. His wife is stepping out of the white mist, followed by Olin and Cynthia. Anything wrong? We've been waiting for you. Billy gives a look behind them, trying to tell which one her husband was mourning.
Twiline.
I just met someone. Took me a while longer. What's the matter? Me and the kids. Natasha is going to get ready for the party. Will you join us? Well, the man pauses awkwardly. They have what? I don't know what the choice is here. Nothing's popped up. Whatever. We'll just let him do whatever he decides to do. The man pauses awkwardly. They have just got some lead on the priest case and almost everybody is working overtime. He has managed to take a day off for the afternoon Comrades in Arms party. He decided heading back to the station before the party in case something happened. He doesn't want to miss any updates. But maybe he should be with his family. Mrs. Sergius has been planning this party for a long time, and they really should be there as soon as they can. You guys go ahead. I have to get back to the office first. Dad! His son frowns, and before Billy's eyes glare, Urchin hastens to plead.
Aline.
Don't worry, I'll be there on time. It's just that, the case has come to a close, and I don't want not to see it. You're always like this. Ugh. Enough, Olin, let's go. This doesn't extract more of a complaint from his wife. What? This doesn't extract more complaint from the wife. Okay. She knows her husband all too well, so she just shakes her head before brushing the disappointed look off her face. Olin seems like he wants to go on with his chattering, only to be shushed by his mother. The couple walk towards Natasha and the kids. Seeing his family receding into the background, he leaves the cemetery from the other side. The dedicated officer knows that there are no good choices at both ends of life and work. Well, it didn't give me a choice. It didn't translate anything. There are no good choices when you don't have an option. What he doesn't know is that the phone call from the Church of Thalazak is waiting at his destination. Oh. He's got a phone call from the church, guys. Ah, I see. Okay, so that was this one, Urchin Easternizer's story, and now we've got Raven's side to the story, which I'm assuming is where Rorty dies. Thinking about the accident that happened last night, Raven had a sleepless night. When he finally left the guest room to join the tower, the owner of the mansion, Lagarde, for breakfast, the man made another request. He wanted Rorty to accompany him to the cemetery in Illy, where the love of his life rested in peace. Oh, he said his daughter, not his wife. That's really weird. Let's see what this has to say. You don't look so... It is Lagarde, okay. He just looks different without his monocle. You don't look so well. Have you got any sleep? Cake! More cake! Feed the prisoner cake until he bursts. Raven sets down his cutlery when he feels Lagarde's gaze. The wrinkles on his face form a concerned expression. Only the two is sitting down for breakfast. Gowl is still sleeping, and Rorty, who just had the surgery, can only consume liquids.
Blurchy.
Blurchy? Nightmares, I guess. I forgot. People always forget their dreams the moment they wake up. You're just not scared enough. Oh, that's a threat. Raven's words are interrupted. The man waves his finger with a complex and deep expression on his face. When nightmare becomes reality, you will never forget it. Raven's heart quivers, as if a small string has been gently plucked. but his intuition tells him that the man's facade is cracking from something more subtle, like a channel of grief and despair.
Moya line.
Oh, excuse my mumbo jumbo. There are many people in this world who also suffer from the same fear and nightmare as you do. Does this make you feel any better? Much like poor Gowl, he had just lost his brother. Oh, that's not a very good analogy. Would you like some warm milk? That's so random. The younger man's mouth twitches. When he met Gowl last night, that young man who had kidnapped him, he was gaunt, frail and sullen, completely different from the evil in his imagination. Speaking of the death of his brother, he was secretly celebrating, but he could never go up to say he's sorry for his loss. He would rather stay away from him.
Line.
No,
Whatsie?
I feel much better now. Thank you, Mr. Whiteson. It's my job to provide you with the best environment possible. I just hope my focused retention hasn't upset you. We really need you here. Raven is taken aback. The older man's words remind him of why he chose to become a doctor in the first place. I need to be needed, a sense of purpose.
Team line.
Yes, and I'll do my best. Is there anything else I can do? The older man tinkles the brass bell. After a while, the maid arrives with their coats. Maids have taken your clothes to the cleaners. I have a more dignified outfit for you. I hope you don't mind my self-assertion.
Line.
Not at all, Mr. Whiteson.
Jang.
Would you care to join me on a little trip to a place that holds dear to me? Better not wake Gowl and Rorty where they are still sleeping.
Just your claw?
Where to? Legard, with no response, shifts his leg to support his body and spins his cane. The younger man turns his gaze from the brass horse head in his hand to find out that the older man has already put on his trench coat. They're sitting in this car just like yesterday. The driver, now known as Larry, starts the car. Raven hasn't seen Robert today. Perhaps he's been fired. He may have been granted with a sneak peek of the man's secrets. Before they leave the house, the gentleman takes a bunch of fresh white lilies from the vase and wraps them in paper. When the car finally stops, the younger man makes out the painted red lettering in the sign, Emergard Chapel. Ermengarahad Chapel. His gaze brushes through the bouquet in the gentleman's hand to the masses of graves in the dim morning light. This chapel outside Illy is famous for the cemetery in the back. He wonders who they will be visiting while following the older man in silence. They walk down the path of gravelly grey slabs between the tombs deep in the cemetery. He glances at the gravestones while passing through. The carved stones exhibit patterns that evolve over time with its occupants. The older man slows his steps before one of them. There is an abnormal intensity of emotion upon him. He doesn't seem to be shaking or crying, just staring at the white marble headstones, his rough and broad hands clutching the flowers. But the fear is so palpable that it's almost as if countless crows have landed on his shoulders. The man finally stops in front of the plain-styled grave which the younger man afraid to approach. So the younger man watches the man in distance as his eyes boring into the red inscription, which has not been worn away by the weather. Raven is able to decipher the name engraved on the top. Cioret Aurora, 1527 to 1542. A young girl who lived only 15 years. Oh, it must be his other daughter, not Rorty. The man takes a handkerchief from his pocket before bending down to wipe condensation off the stone. Raven tries to keep his name in mind while observing his move. Even his clammy hands start to feel warm from over-nervousness. He notices a rustle sound approaching, footsteps, gentle and steady, a man. Legard seems to detect his presence too, though he remains unswayed. He chose to resume his work wiping dirt and dew.
Eh?
Winshaw, that Winshaw from medical school. It's the detective he met in the morgue the day before. What a coincidence. What are you doing here? Urchin recognizes him and gives a smile, but his mind is buzzing, tongue unconsciously flicking in his mouth, making a stuttering and confused noise. His heart pounds in his chest as if all his organs are in scene to its beat. When he clenches his fist tightly, it even trembles with his rhythm. He's just too scared to breathe and feels dazed as a result of the elevated blood pressure and heart rate. So he's obviously anxious because he's been kidnapped and his kidnapper is right there and there's a police officer talking to him so he could give away what's going on, and he's feeling nervous and anxious about it. He is only a few feet away in Lagarde. He is only a few feet and a Lagarde away from the detective. All he needs to do is go behind this man and tell him what's happened, and he will be out of the woods. With this thought stirs him, and the roar of hope fills his heart with courage. He almost is ready to turn on his heels. However, they fall back on the slab as if a thick swamp is swallowing him up. He just can't pull his legs out of it. Lagarde is still standing between him and the detective. And Rorty still needs him.
Darkle?
Are you alright? Oh shit, it's done it again. It hasn't given me a decision. So I don't know what the decisions are. Maybe it's because he's acting strange and the painful look on his face that betrayed him. Urchin takes 2 steps towards the younger man. Lagarde also turns to look at him. When he realizes that he has taken a step forward without even knowing it, maybe it's not too late to take it back.
Line.
It's fine, thank you. Urchin gazes at him with a quizzical look on his face, but he just nods in acknowledgement and says nothing. Lagarde rises up, leaning on his cane. He bows his head slightly to the younger man, like a thank you. The trio fall into silence, except for the cold white fog wafting around their headstones and their legs. He tries to break the strange atmosphere by initializing a conversation, that should read.
Just your claw?
So, who are you paying a visit to, may I ask?
Ah,
For someone I didn't save.
Darkle?
And you?
Myers, dear.
I'm just here with a friend, so this ties along with what we just read in Urchinizer's story. As he speaks, the older man's sullen expression eases. This makes a bulging brows and a slim nose extremely gaunt, revealing a fatigue and pain. Please excuse my manners, as a father who has lost his daughter.
Gush.
No, I should apologize. The gentleman takes off the monocle and wipes it with a piece of silk. As he lowers his head, Raven notices the fine wrinkles on his forehead. He is an old man, well on the way to decrepitude.
Clairvoyant, you can't.
Yeah, we've read all this before. The younger man fixes his gaze on the duo in silence. He will not persecute this father, a man in despair. He is a doctor, and the doctor's universal principles apply to everyone, so he turns to the detective instead. So you are also mourning your child? Ah, no, was a victim of my case. He was just in his teens when his throat was cut open. Maybe death was kinder to him, you know, as a musical genius who grew up as a star and lost his voice. Alas. He takes a drag from his cigarette, slowly puffing out a sigh. The resonance of the detective's word makes the older man lift his head, looking pensive. He does look less withered than before, but he keeps rubbing his forehead as if still troubled by pain.
Just your claw.
Did you catch the guy? No, this is the most appalling cold case. Yeah, we read this. So he was covered by a bandage when we found him, first aid style. Someone was trying to save him? Who knows, maybe his last mercy, but it didn't help. The detective sighs and flicks out the ash. Take a cigarette for this rare encounter.
Line.
No, thank you. The older man stands up to avoid the detective roast, so he cannot endure him anymore. Okay. The older man stands up to avoid the detective's offering, as if he could not endure any more. He lowers his head, covering his face with the shadow of the brim of his hat, and walks past the man in silence. He pats Raven's arm on his way. Mr. Whiteson. The younger man forges a puzzled look and calls the gentleman with absolute sincerity. He thinks his acting skills has improved a lot over the past few days, hoping that this detective will not be careless enough to ignore the only clues he could offer. The older man grabs Raven's arm and forces him to leave. All he can do is glance back at the apathetic detective, who remains standing and gazing down gazing down at the white lily in front of the tomb. Okay, so that Raven was trying to give him some clues there. He said Mr. Whiteson's name, so now he might be able to find out what's going on. We've got a Porrely story, and we've got a Letzeriel story. Okay, cool. But guys, we are coming up to the hour. We've only got about 15 minutes left, so I'm not going to dive into either of these stories in case we go overboard. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching the stream, though, guys. It was a bit of a confusing one, this one, I have to be honest. Jumping around quite a lot, different timelines, that whole thing with the telegram at the end of the Verithesis Order meeting was very bizarre. It hasn't explained anything. It's just left me with more questions than it has answered. But I'm super stoked to be playing this. Looks like we've got a bit of a problem with the decisions not popping up. I'm not sure if that means that they haven't been translated properly. I'll carry on trying playing the game the best I can, to the best of my abilities. But if it gets to a point where I literally can't see what the decisions are and they keep getting me murdered, then we might have to call it quits. I'm not sure. But I'm going to keep going for as long as I can, guys. I'm really enjoying this game. I will hopefully see you in the next episode. I produce content every single day, so peace out till next time.